which I know when that came out was just a huge deal and kind of seems to have simmered down, but I'm sure will come roaring back with a vengeance when we least expect it. Other possible focus areas are, creating a resource guide for our members and non-members, creating a term sheet, looking at best practices for proposal stage through life cycle. And that gets to, again, the volunteer request. Right now, our work group is made up of primarily large research institutions, so I'm putting a plea out for all of you that are at smaller institutions to please consider joining the work group. We need those perspectives. We know what to do in the larger institutions, but the smaller ones have different challenges they face that we just aren't familiar with. So our next steps are continuing to brainstorm our ideas. We will share the ideas with the contract subcommittee and start generation of tools for FDP member use. Right now, what the members are working on is we've taken certain elements, some being specific definitions, some being specific FAR clauses, and we are working to identify, what are kind of the most common ones, what would we define it as, what's plain language definition, and what are the potential implications. Again, those implications are where we need the broader perspective from many types of institutions, many of our members. So that is part of the generation of tools for FDP member use that we're looking to do. So I'll just keep plugging. Please consider joining a work group. We only meet virtually once a month. It's really not that much. Please. So if you have any questions about it, or if you are interested in learning more, please contact me or Heidi. She is the other co-chair. We are more than welcome to entertain questions or other perspectives or feedback of any sort. So thank you. I will hand off to Catherine now.
Thank you, Julie. So this morning I'm briefly going to describe what an other transaction agreement is, or rather what it isn't, the background of the other transaction working group, what they've done so far to date, and what we want to get your input on where the working group should go from here, where we should concentrate our efforts. So another transaction authority is a term that's commonly used to refer to the authorization that federal agencies have as approved by Congress to carry out projects with more flexibility than prescribed in standard award documents. So the funding mechanism is referred to as an other transaction, and it's distinct from other types of federal financial assistance or contract documents. What it's not is it's not a grant, it's not a contract, it's not a CRADA. These other transaction agreements are typically used by the government when they want to very swiftly make awards for accomplishing work in emerging technologies or in research, and they need to be very flexible with movement. So for these other transaction agreements, all the terms are completely negotiable. So they have the ability to do whatever they need to with the agreement very quickly. They're not subject to FAR or 2 CFR 200. All the terms are completely negotiable, and procurement integrity provisions and the BIDOL don't apply. So in 2019, the FDP working group was created to review these other transaction agreements, and they reported that they were increasing, although that the transactions were still a really small percentage of the budgetary spending across the federal agencies. Their purpose is to quicken and provide better solutions to the agencies, but they don't come without their own share of issues for universities. Since they're fully negotiable, they challenge the standard ways that we have of our negotiations, and the agreements are managed very differently depending on which federal agency is issuing them. The working group was headed by Sarah White and Mike Kuziak, and they did a survey in the fall of 2019 of all the FDP members. The purpose was to seek out the scale of the use of the other transaction agreements among the FDP institutions and to understand the common challenges that universities experience when negotiating and managing these types of awards. A white paper was also drafted based upon the survey, and what it showed was that although other transaction agreements allow flexibility for the government, it didn't necessarily equate to ease in negotiation for the recipients. Since there's no common award format, the flexibility lacked standard terms and conditions that are typical in federal assistance contracts and or federal assistance awards and many of the contracts that we receive. Half of the 132 FDP institutions that were there at the time reported that they had accepted other transaction agreements, and the other half had not. The majority of the agreements received was from the NIH, DARPA, and the Department of Defense. The most problematic clauses that were indicated were with publication clauses and with intellectual property terms. And in some cases, the terms and conditions that were in the agreements had conflicting or inconsistent terms, which made it difficult to navigate. So based upon the survey results, the working group recommended that the other transaction working group remain a distinct working group of the contracts committee to monitor the use of these types of transaction agreements and to consider working with our federal agencies to pursue commonality among the form and content of these agreements. And so moving forward, what we're looking at is putting together a working group, a new working group, and it's going to be combined between the contracts subcommittee and the subaward subcommittee. And what we're looking at doing is asking for volunteers who are interested in serving in the capacity, and we want to form two different focus groups, one based on contracts, one based on subawards, and we'll have a committee lead for each of those two working groups, and they will work separately on items, then bring them together for reporting out to the FDP. So we're looking for volunteers for both of those focus groups. We're also interested in getting feedback from the group on our areas of focus for what the working group should have for priorities moving forward. And so we have a poll that we have live currently in the app, and we have several things listed in the poll that we would like for you to provide feedback on where you think that our priorities should be moving forward. So these are the different charges that we're looking at: the best practices on negotiating these agreement types, strategies for working with each particular agency and comparing between the agencies of the terms and conditions that are included in the agreements, top 10 terms or keywords that are problematic within these agreements, IP issues that are common amongst these, why it was chosen as a mechanism rather than doing a contract or other type of financial assistance. We're considering putting together a cheat sheet on the institutions by agencies so that we can share practices that we have had when moving forward. And we're also looking at putting together a session maybe at the next meeting where we bring in some of the federal agency reps for those that have been issuing other transaction authority agreements to our institutional members and doing some work with them at the next meeting. So I believe, Janet, the poll is currently open. So if y'all would take a few minutes to look over that, we're going to leave the poll open throughout the remainder of this session. We'll be closing it at the end of the session, but if you would give us your feedback, we'd very much appreciate that. And again, just like all the others, we very much would appreciate volunteers for serving on either the sub-awards focus group or the contract work group. And so please do provide that feedback, and now I'm going to turn this back over to Janet.
Thanks, Catherine. I'm sure you're getting the theme so far, the shameless plug for volunteers. I hope it's resonating with everybody. But all jokes aside, this group needs your help. We absolutely want to hear from you and to have you on board to help solve some of these issues that we pointed out. So at the end of the session, I'll be over in the corner accepting business cards. Please do come see me. I'm going to just finish out and give some additional general updates from some of the other working groups that are not here with us today. And so Troublesome Clause 2.0, TC 2.0. It's been a long time awaiting. It's coming. I promise you it is coming. So far, I am pleased to announce that we have actually established the functional requirements as outlined here. So we've developed the access permissions, the clause addition requirements, the search functionality, and all of the reporting capabilities. The issue, however, is that we need an IT specialist to help us code all of that. And so we've been working with the executive team of FDP to try to source that individual. We're very close to doing that. And so as soon as we have more definitive dates, we will be announcing that to all of you. The FRE, what is FRE, right? Fundamental Research Exemption. We have a working group for that group as well. So far, I am pleased to announce that the subcommittee has developed a selection of templates that can be utilized for FDP member institutions. This can be utilized when you're requesting a fundamental research exemption on a federal subcontract under various different scenarios. There are, as I said, multiple templates out there that can be used or incorporated either at the proposal stage in terms of the proposal cover sheet. There is also an example that can be utilized separately from the cover sheet. And there's an example that can be utilized when, of course, you're not aware of it, and you get this award, and you're at the award stage and need to make that request. Please do go out onto the contract subcommittee webpage. You'll see the examples out there, and we welcome all feedback. So please do let us know what you think. And if you have any interest in also wanting to participate on that working group, Andrea, would you wave your hand again so everybody can see you? Thank you. Again, the shameless plug for volunteers. As I mentioned earlier, we did do some updates on the contracts website or the web page, and we want to thank many of you. We issued a survey earlier in the year, and you provided some feedback to us, some of you, about how you'd like to see things displayed and all of that, and we heard you. So we did make those updates. Again, the site is not complete, and I am sure that you all are aware that FDP is moving or transitioning to yet a newer model and format for the website. And so you'll see additional changes and resources and updates coming. About a week ago, there was a thought exchange that was issued or sent. Can you raise your hand if you all saw it? Anybody? Only Andrea? Oh no. Well, nonetheless, if you would just pull out your cameras and take a quick snapshot of that link, that is the link to the thought exchange that was sent out to gather feedback for, again, I had mentioned one of our other new working group, the State Requirements Flow Down working group. How many of you have experienced or received sub-award agreements with specific terms that are specific to a particular state that were problematic? Okay, so it's many of us. That's the intent of that working group. It's to gather these types of issues that we're seeing from various states and analyze them, right? Let's see what we can accept, what we can't, how can we move around in that environment, in that space. But in order for us to do that, we need your input. We have to hear back from you to hear, what are you seeing? What is problematic for you? What should we prioritize and focus on? So please do respond to the thought exchange. And with that, we are going to open the floor for questions, thoughts, comments.
Hi, good morning. Recently, I've been hearing things about different states having data privacy laws that might be problematic for other states. So it's no longer just like GDPR foreign things. It's now state to state. And I'm hearing, oh, is it going to be hard to contract with California? So I just want to know if this group is looking into, you just talked about like state problematic clauses with state laws. Is that one of the areas that is being looked at, or a suggestion, perhaps?
Absolutely, and that's the exact intent of that working group. Sounds like you need to meet me on the side there.
Well, Heidi is in my office, so Heidi's already contributing, but yeah. So I'll push it on to Heidi, but yeah.
Good save, good save.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Just one quick thought about OTAs. I think the topics that you have there for discussion are great. One that might be missed is I think a number of us get OTAs as subrecipients. And so the issue is not always necessarily working directly with our federal partners, but that intermediary can really be the issue. So I want to make sure that we sort of plug that into the conversation as well. Thanks.
Absolutely. And if anybody has any other ideas or think there should be other priorities, please let us know. We want to make sure that we have focused on the areas that are going to be most common amongst the institutions. I just wanted to take a second to provide some feedback on the poll as it is right now. Currently, the feedback that we've received is about 33% of you think that the focus should be on best practices for negotiation of these OTs. 15% indicated that top 10 OTA terms and keywords would be a good focus area. And then we had 14% that indicated that cheat sheet on institutions by agency would be a good focus area. So we're going to tackle probably 3 to 5 of these right up front. So if you have not yet provided input on the poll, please do so. Also, feel free to reach out to us afterwards as well. We just want to make sure that we're heading in the right direction moving forward. We appreciate your input.
I would also just add, like, in the context of the OTA flow-through, we've talked a little bit about sort of the situation where you have a consortium based on an OTA where that's flowing through, and that is, I think, even more problematic in terms of the uphill battle you would face on getting any required changes made. So I think that's an important development that we can focus on as well.
Speaking from personal experience for the OTAs and the flow through down to the subawardees, and we are a subawardee to a huge OTA, is that there is no time for negotiations. It's given, you take it or leave it, it's signed within a day, and otherwise don't take it at all. So that's where our main problem is. Not that much the negotiation of the terms, is there is no time to negotiate. I don't know if other universities have the same.
Have you noticed, is it a particular agency that
NIH. This is NIH.
Oh, okay. Well, we're hoping to have our NIH reps join us for a discussion on this moving forward, so the feedback is appreciated. Thank you.
Would you see this working group or another be interested in or responsible for templates for collaborating that are not funded? And so it's a lot more than a DUA. And, we all get a lot of direct awards from the federal government and then are expected to collaborate with our colleagues. And that's the widest variety I see in terms of templates, is everyone's making their own collaboration agreement.
That's good feedback. I like that. That would help me too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of crossover in terms of some of the structure the DTUA has built out in terms of multi-party agreements, but I think it's definitely worth considering, sort of what what is the nature of the collaboration and how that gets structured in a template agreement seems to be the big challenge there in terms of what are the components to the collaboration that you would need to add in.
Any other questions?
Morning. Thanks for a good panel. I'm Mary Sladek. I'm from NASA. And on your OTA issues, I would like to mention that following on to the comment about collaboration at NASA, you can look at nasa.gov/partnerships. There's a whole website that describes our OTAs. We call them Space Act Agreements or SAAs. Most of our OTAs are actually people paying us, not us paying money out, although there are some of our Space Acts that are funded. And a lot of them are no exchange of funds where we're doing collaborative activities with our partners. So I'll come by. Who's looking for information for the OTA group? Could you raise your hand? Okay, I'll come by and give you my card so we can follow up later.
Fantastic. Thank
Would
you so much.
Yes, meet me over in the corner here afterwards. Thank you.
I don't know if you want to meet her in the corner. That sounds a little scary.
She knows the intent. And I just want to say thank you so much. While we are here soliciting volunteers, that does include our government partners as well. We absolutely want to make sure that these committees are well balanced and that we're hearing from both sides of the table. So thank you.
This is not related, but I just wanted to see if anyone else is experiencing this. We have gotten several requests from third parties recently about CRADAs and their impact on the world, I guess. And some of them go back 20, 30 years. They're asking us for data, and I just want to see if anybody else is getting those. If you've done anything with them, because we so far haven't and don't know what to do with them, but we don't have the kind of data they're asking for anyway, so.
Did they indicate why they were asking for that data?
They said that the government is asking them to determine how useful the CRADAs have been and what economic impact they're having. So the types, none of them are funded, so the types of data that they're asking for are not something that we would ever have collected, even if we still had the CRADAs. I mean, some are from the 90s.
Did they happen to indicate which agencies were inquiring for the feedback?
I'd have to go back and look. I've been mostly not paying attention to them, but.
Yeah, that's interesting.
We at NC State also had that request, and I reached out directly to the person who had sent the email. They're a university out on the West Coast who was contacted by DOD to perform these services for the survey. They're just out looking for best information that you can provide, if that's just the PI's name, because some of them we noticed were the director at the time. So PI name, for a lot of the information that is related to like spin-offs and things that came out of the CRADA funding, I reached out to our Office of Technology Transfer or our Office of Research Commercialization, and they were able to pull up just what, if any of the CRADAs resulted in disclosures, and if those disclosures turned into anything else after that. So I will say the person I spoke to and their company name, even though they are a contractor out of a university, I can't think of the name. They said it was just whatever information you could provide would be appreciated, but it was not something like a gotcha or that you have to worry about coming back later. So, I'm sorry? TechLink, yes, thank you. So I would just say whatever you can find is great. We definitely had a lot of blank sections, and I think we submitted it over a month ago. They confirmed that they had it, and we haven't had additional follow-up. So I think it's just them trying to get information broadly.
Did they indicate if they were, why they were doing it on behalf of the agency and the agency wasn't reaching out directly?
No, I didn't get the background on that.
And can you clarify, are they requesting for you to identify if you've signed a CRADA in the past and what that experience is like?
No, it was really just, they have a record of what CRADAs have been entered into by the different organizations.
Okay.
And they're checking those against what we have just to gather more information. So they understand that, the person I spoke to understood that we as a university are not, actively doing spin-offs from CRADAs or that type of thing. But it was really to measure the impact of CRADAs on economic development.
Interesting. Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right, if not, we would like to thank you all for being such a wonderful audience. We also want to give a special thank you to Sarah. She has just been tremendous with helping everybody, including ourselves, set up for this in-person meeting. So thank you, Sarah, wherever you are.